Alright, what is going on YouTube? Aussie Drongo versus the Viper. The main reason why I actually chose this game here is because we see a civilization matchup that we don't often see in today's rank. Rus seems just so powerful. Mongols is also a fan favorite because of the relocation, so rarely do we see Chinese being used. The other side will be Franks for the Viper in red, and Aussie Drongo is going to be playing blue as Chinese on the left. So before we actually dig ourselves very deep into this game, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I really appreciate all the kind words that I received on my uploads on AoE Forecast. I didn't expect this many people to watch them, but it looks like it's kind of popular. I'm trying to read all comments and trying to just, improve in what I do. So one of the things that was said to me is that I should explain basic concepts a little bit more, because this is still the early stages of Age of Empires 4, so a lot of people don't know some basics. The other thing I want to highlight is that, this is a recorded game, not a live game. Now, when it comes to recorded games, it's pretty difficult to access them, because the players can disable their profile, so basically, I cannot check the recorded games of a certain player if he disables it. And many people decided to do that because there's a $20,000 Genesis tournament coming in, and they just want to hide their preparation. Now, it's important to note that these are ranked games, and the players have been streaming these. So, first of all, you don't show your secret strategies in ranked games anyways. You do them in private custom lobbies that are not spectatable. Second, they've been streaming this anyways, so I'm fairly confident I'm not leaking any confidential secret preparation strategies from the players. So that's the main reason why I'm doing this. If they really prepare for the event behind the scenes, that's done in private lobbies that are indeed inaccessible. That being said, it's kind of difficult to access high-level recorded games because a lot of people decide to disable their profiles. So I either catch their live games or I have to find someone who they played and a player that has not disabled recorded games on his profile yet. So because of that reason, it's kind of difficult to find games from some high-level players. I saw that people have been requesting the Mista, who is one of the highest rated, if not the highest rated AoE4 player right now on the ladder. So if I actually find some games from him, I will most definitely cast some games. This is apparently going to be the case for all other high-level ranked players. I will try to find them on the ladder and see if I can catch a game or two from them, or see if their profile still has the recorded games enabled. That's all I wanted to say while we were in Dark Age. Viper is opening with 2 on gold, and he's also sending some villagers to stone. And when he's doing that, this means that he wants to go for a second town center, because mining stone makes 0 sense if you're not going for a second town center over here. He's going up with the School of Cavalry, which is no surprise. This is basically the building that you use in most cases with the French when aging up. It's basically a stable that allows you to produce early knights, so you can have a lot of aggression early on. The other side is Aussie Drongo with Chinese, and there is not a lot of people that play Chinese, but I feel like Chinese is the most difficult civilization to figure out entirely. But if you figure it out, it could be an absolutely beastly civilization. So, he's going up with the Barbican of the Sun, which is like a huge defensive tower, basically. But what's more interesting here is that he already popped out the Imperial Officer. So let's talk about this guy, even though I do have a separate YouTube video on that you probably want to check out if you want to know more about this. But basically, this guy can do 2 things. A, he can collect tax from buildings. Every 10 resources you drop off at a building, so for example 10 wood being dropped off, generates 1 tax income, and if the tax collector picks it up and brings it back to the TC, it's converted to gold. The other thing that the tax collector can do, and this is what you usually do early on, is supervise buildings. And when the buildings are supervised, in case of the drop-off sites, they actually drop off more resources. So you see that this villager will be carrying 10 wood. Let's see. This guy's gonna be carrying 10 wood, and it's gonna drop off 12. That's the supervisability. And when it comes to production buildings, they can accelerate research and unit production like crazy. So you can go for some good horseman rushes with this, because you can just drop a stable and pump out a couple of horsemen pretty fast. Anyways, looks like Drongo is also mining stone here, so I think he just wants to play 2TC Boom as well. You see, he's supervising the lumber camp, so he drops off more wood over there. That's because he needs a lot of wood to make a town center. There is going to be a house coming in. Drongo was housed for quite a considerable amount of time. That wasn't really nice. And for Viper, he is just reaching feudal age. That's because I think he used 2 or 3 villagers at maximum to build that school of cavalry. Luckily for him, Drongo is not going for a lot of aggression, so he's not going to get punished for that kind of late feudal age here. Speaking of which, I always forget to enable the in-game time. This is difficult, because if I enable the in-game time, this stupid marker just goes below, so I'll probably just disable in-game time for now. This is one of the more annoying things in a Chinese game, because Chinese do have access to different dynasties, as you see over here, and you advance to the next dynasty by building both age-up buildings to a corresponding age. So for example, Drongo has this one, and if he builds the other one, he would get to the Song dynasty, unlocking the Zungenu, which is basically Chukanu, villages, which are like super big houses that you can garrison villagers inside. Plus, also, the villager production time would be reduced by 35%. Usually when you're booming with the Chinese, this is the dynasty you want to hit, because the Tang dynasty is helpful in Dark Age with the line of sight, but what you want to hit really is the Song dynasty. After that, I feel like it's just too big of an investment to advance to the Yuan or Ming dynasty early on, so you just do that pretty late in the game. So the most time, you spend it in the Song dynasty, the Tang dynasty. Anyways, Drongo is going to drop a second town center. It's an interesting spot over here. It's going to basically mean that Viper can't really run past his buildings here with his army, because it's just going to get shredded by the TCs, and it's going to be on the hunt, so a lot of food income will be available for Drongo. The thing I don't necessarily like is that, you know, he hasn't secured an additional gold mine with this, which could be a bit of a problem, although his base layout looks fine. If you look at this, the Barbican of the Sun helps protect the wood line and the gold, and this TC helps protect the food. So for now, it's good. Later on, he's gonna have some issues controlling additional gold mines, though. So better long-term TC could have been maybe over here. But this is an alright TC. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying that he's gonna have to expand towards gold at some point. Meanwhile, for Viper, he is placing his second TC on the wood, and so far this has been a super passive game. Neither of the players are really motivated to do any kind of aggression. Viper has popped out, I think, 1 knight, and that's basically it. And you see a couple of horsemen are now popping out for Drongo, so that he just has some map presence, probably. But, yeah, surprisingly passive game over here. If either of these players went for a couple of spearmen and rams, that would be pretty difficult for the opponent to deal with, I have to say. Now, Drongo has retasked the Imperial Officer to supervise the gold mine. So you see now he's getting a drop-off bonus for that. And this is why I said that Chinese is one of the most flexible civilizations in the entire game. The Imperial Officer allows you to sort of fine-tune your eco-balance, adjust quickly, and also allows you to potentially spam out units really fast if you supervise those buildings. Plus, of course, the tax income, which these buildings are getting, is also a very nice source of gold. So, once Drongo gets a second tax collector out, which is coming out just now, he's going to start picking up all of these gold, and you see, the production build, or the drop-off buildings, already have like 170 or so combined gold in them. Plus, the military buildings also produce gold based on the amount of units trained. Oh, looks like the mill is gonna be buffed here. I like that idea. As here's the Imperial economy. Viper comes in with the knights though. So Drongo is gonna have to jump into the TC here. Viper with the first aggression. But those knights don't have extra pierce armor, so they actually take a lot of damage here from the TC fire. What Viper is probably gonna do is get the chivalry upgrade, which would allow his knights to self-heal in Feudal Age. This is a pretty broken upgrade, to be honest. It's relatively cheap, 50 wood, 125 gold. And it allows the very expensive and powerful units that you have in Feudal to just self-heal. So they run away, heal up, and then go back. Anyways, I appreciate this idea here from Drongo. He is supervising the mill, so when the villagers drop off the sheep, he's gonna get more food from it. He's going for the Imperial Academy. This is what I was talking about. This is the second Feudal Age landmark of the Chinese. You see, this is an H2 landmark, and this is also an H2 landmark. So the idea here is that once he gets that, first of all, the buildings inside this radius will actually generate more tax income, which is perfect for him. All his drop-off buildings are inside the influence radius of the Imperial Academy. And the other thing that he's getting from it is that he will get to the Song Dynasty, allowing him to go for villages, which will be a lot more wood efficient than houses are. Plus, he can use them to sort of shelter his villagers from raids. So, for example, if he makes a village here and starts mining gold, then in case a raid comes in, he can garrison that village. Obviously, if there's a lot of units, they will still destroy the village, but it's good to sort of prevent 1 or 2 knights from smashing your villagers. So now he's up in the Song Dynasty, and this is where the booming really begins. So 35% reduction on villager training time actually is pretty massive. Meanwhile, Drongo might bump into Viper's knights here. Indeed, he will. So he's gonna have to disengage. Viper is going for multiple ranges, and he's pretty close to Castle Age. Very nice eco balance from him. Also is a mark it out. And considering that Drongo has very, very minor military presence on this part of the map, Viper could just pop out a couple of traders and start trading with a trade post for some extra resources. That would be a nice thing for him. He also has a lot of hunt here still because he's only consuming them with free vills. It looks like Viper is adding archers for the time being. That's not necessarily a good decision when it comes to fighting against horsemen, but for now he doesn't actually need to like directly fight them. And he's gonna have some knight meat shields as well, so I think it's gonna be fine. Once he gets a decent amount of knights and archers out, that's gonna be difficult to deal with for Drongo. Anyways, there is the astronomical clock tower coming in for Drongo. This is basically a siege workshop that produces siege engines that are stronger in HP. As a raiding party comes in, let's see if Drongo can get a villager pick or not. This will be the first villager kill of the game, but it looks like Drongo will disengage as the archers, the TC, will just scare his horsemen away. Also, Drongo did lose, I think that was a horseman, not a scout, but it may have been a scout. Doesn't really matter at this point. Drongo is gonna have to retreat. He's on the way towards Castle Age and he sees the archers from Viper, so what he could potentially do is go Nest of Bees with Spearmen. The Nest of Bees is a unique Chinese siege unit that's insanely good against massed units, especially archers. So if Viper just goes for a big blob of archers, Nest of Bees plus something that protects them from the cavalry is probably the way to go, which I think should be, you know, Spearmen. Alternatively, you can go Crossbowmen, as Drongo is doing, because the Crossbowmen can also pick off the Knights relatively easily, but you need something as a meat shield in front. Meanwhile, Viper is going up to the Royal Institute. This is a building that allows him to research all the unique upgrades for the French for a lower cost, and the big thing here is that they ignore all age requirements. So for example, Gambesons, extremely important upgrade if you're going for Arbalest or Arbaletrier with the French. That's basically a crossbowman that's slightly stronger than the standard one, and they can go for a Pavise, which gives them a lot of extra pierce armor. A Pavise is like a shield, so they can deploy a shield and then get a lot of pierce armor. Plus, if you get this upgrade, they'll have insane melee armor as well. Plus, of course, Cantled Saddles and Royal Bloodlines, both of these upgrades are very, very good. Royal Bloodlines is pretty expensive, but plus 35% health for your cavalry in Castle Age is quite a considerable buff, I must say. Anyways, looks like a double blacksmith coming in here for Drongo. One of the things that to note in this game is that the blacksmith upgrades take a lot longer to research than in the case of Age of Empires 2. So, oftentimes you just need double blacksmith because, you see, you would have to wait 1 minute to get those upgrades in. For reference, the game has been running for 13 minutes, so 1 minute of a time is quite a lot here for Drongo to wait. He's going out for berries. Looking at the villager count, Viper is at 72 and Drongo is at 71, so even Steven in that regard. For now, it looks like Viper has one blacksmith over here. He has gotten the melee attack upgrades for his knights, and he's moved out to take the hunt on the right side. Also added the third TC, so he's now on 3 TCs. Drongo apparently stays on 2, but this is what I was talking about. Look at this village. I love this here because it gives vision for Drongo on this crossing, so Viper can just surprise him from behind. So far, I really feel like Drongo's base layout is actually very nice. The Barbican of the Sun protecting gold, the second TC adding it on the hunt, and then this village to try and prevent raids, or at least notice them before they actually become a thing. Looks like Viper is coming out with a couple of knights. Now the problem that Drongo is facing is that Viper is mostly archers, and archers do beat crossbowmen. So Drongo will need something that deals with the archers of the opponent. That could maybe be Zungenu as well. but I feel like Nest of Bees is probably the better choice. He's getting Springles for the time being. Now, if you have a meat shield in front of Springles, those can be very, very dangerous against Knights as well. But they're not particularly effective against Archers. They deal a lot of damage. It's 60 per hit. So it's very good against, like, low numbers of heavily armored or high HP units. It's not so good when the archers of the opponent have 80 HP, because you need 2 projectiles to kill a single archer, and there's just so many of them. Anyways, I feel like a couple of Nest of Bees could work very nicely for the Drongo, who is once again housed, going for a couple more villagers out here. You see a village. Where is that? Village. It's, I need to find it on the overlay. It's right here. It's 100 wood and gives you 40 population. Whereas a house is 50 wood and gives you 10. So it's a lot more wood efficient. Viper is actually going to sacrifice an archer just to see what his opponent is doing. He is intentionally running in here, checking out what his opponent is up to. As he's swooping in from the north, he does have veteran horsemen in, and that's a good addition. Because while the crossbowmen definitely perform very well against the knights, they struggle quite mightily against the horsemen. As here comes Viper. The Springles will take some nice shots, and I feel like Drongo's got enough mass over here to just brute force scare these guys away. But one thing is sure, Drongo will need to react to the horsemen here with spearmen, otherwise he's gonna be in trouble. Looks like it's gonna be Zungenu. Okay. So the Zungenu is basically a rapid-firing archer, but it's not like the AoE2 Chukunu, which is actually pretty good against high pierce armor units as well, because it fires multiple projectiles. It's actually like a better version of an archer, pretty much. Viper did dive in and killed 3 villagers on the gold of Drongo, because Drongo was distracted with these cavalry units, so Viper could swoop in and hit the gold mine. And this is what I was talking about, that this TC is nice for Feudal Age, but beyond that, it's actually a problem for Drongo, because he now has no protection on that gold mine, and that's a lot of villagers going down for Drongo. He's down to 84, and I feel like Viper is already at 102. There's a Nest of Bees, however, and I feel like, oh, there's Viper swooping in with the other cavalry group as well. Such a good use of his cavalry here for Viper. He's just tearing apart the eco of the opponent right now, and forcing Drongo to chase. He's gonna clean up the first wave of horsemen, and now I see more spring oats coming in. There is also at least 1 Nest of Bees. So it's not over yet, but I feel like Viper has already done a considerable amount of damage to the economy of Drongo. Drongo's 51 on wood, holy potatoes. Now, he's dropping off a lot more because of the supervise ability, so he could use a market to balance his eco, but you see he's off from gold, which is never a good sign. Now, given the fact that Viper is almost exclusively archers and horsemen, Drongo could also go for his own horsemen here. But, as I said, his food eco is in a bit of a jeopardy, I would say. Looks like these farms are just freaking out here with the graphics. So, he's just now getting back to gold. And I feel like the thing that Drongo really doesn't have is map control. He could start mining stone, because I think a keep would be very, very helpful for him. And he wants to move out to the big gold mine here in the middle, only to get intercepted by Viper's cavalry. Oh boy. That's the worst possible scenario for him. He tried to sneak like 20 villagers out, and now he could lose all 20 of them, because Viper is swooping in with the archers. Drongo is gonna have to run back home, but this is actually a very important thing to note for Viper. He's like, okay, he's coming to the gold here, which means he's running out of gold back at home. That's a very, very important conclusion for the Viper. Anyways, all the cavalry went down, and that's a lot of Zungenu, plus Spring Oats, plus Nest of Bees. And Viper's forces are now mostly archers only, so Viper also needs to be careful. He's getting some more Springolds out. Now, Springolds are actually very good when it comes to sniping down siege. They do have 10 tiles range, whereas Mangonels have 9, so they actually outrange Mangonels. And you see Drongo wants to go for a couple of stables, if I may say so. 7 stables with 16 on food is a little ambitious, as Viper swoops in with the cavalry from the other side. Now Drongo is mining stone. But you see, Drongo is just forced to chase all day, all night. And he knows about these raids because of the village, because of the TC. But killing those units is actually a different thing, right? And he just needs to use his slow-moving forces to catch up with the knights. Whereas Viper's economy is completely untouched, and he can just boom on whatever amount of town centers he has. at least 3 TCs. Viper is already grabbing a monk, so he's gonna start picking up relics, and he's also gonna start potentially taking sacred sites. Now that group of cavalry will get destroyed, but Viper is already swooping in with the other group of cav. He's just tearing apart Drongo from multiple directions right now. Drongo has found a gold mine here, by the way, and this would be a very, very nice spot to either stonewall, that's also an idea, or to potentially go for a castle. Like, a keep here would protect a lot of gold income for Drongo, who is now in with the stables, but I just don't see anything coming out of those stables right now. He's gonna clean up the cavalry of Viper, and he's at 93 villagers, but Viper's at 111, so considerable eco lead for the Viper over here, and I feel like the big deal is that his eco was never really touched, and that is Imperial Age for the Viper. That's a problem for Drongo, because now Viper is gonna get the final upgrades for the archers, and we could have a lot more horsemen coming out as well. Speaking of horsemen, this is where you want to get the upgrade that Viper already has, the 35% extra HP for your cavalry. It's a very nice upgrade. And what Viper really needs is cannon, because the cannon just melt buildings, so you could steamroll the opponent's base. The traps have higher range, but the cannons have more damage output. And the French actually have better cannons than ordinary, so their gunpowder, or at least this part of their gunpowder, is actually good. Looking at the Drongo, he's not far away from Imperial, but pretty low on food right now, mostly because he got raided pretty heavily here. He's now 4 out of 4 with the Imperial officers, and I wonder where he's using them. He's supervising, I think that's the... Is that the clock tower or the range being supervised? One of these tax talkers is just chilling over here right now, not doing much. I really think that he could try to just supervise this mill or this mill, because that would give him a massive amount of extra food income, something that he desperately needs. Here comes Viper, he's already shelling the buildings of Drongo. Drongo somehow needs to get to Imperial and get some upgrades in for himself to have a chance. So, he has a lot of Nest of Bees. That's something I'm gonna give him. The problem with the Nest of Bees is that those guys don't have amazing range. So they only have 8 range, whereas Viper Springolds do have 10. So, sort of, the Springolds can snipe the opponent's siege here. They're an anti-siege unit, and oh, Drongo's Springolds are shooting at the archers. That's a disaster for him. He needs to snipe Viper Springolds, and that didn't happen. Oh, that's a massive problem. That's a massive problem for Drongo. He was really counting on the Springolds sniping the opponent's Springolds here. Enemy capturing a sacred site is the notification for Drongo. Viper is already going for this one, and he could take this and this as well without problems. Also has villagers on this gold mine. Here come the knights from Viper, and the knights do have bonus damage against siege. Same thing for the horsemen, I believe. So many of those Nest of Bees actually go down over here. Still, Viper has 2 Springolds remaining, and if those go down, those Nest of Bees could easily unleash death on top of him. Because, look at this, Drongo is smashing those, Viper's cavalry is gone, and Drongo is almost up to Imperial. He's going up with the Great Wall Gatehouse on the right side. So now he can get the upgrades in for his archers. One of the things that Drongo could do, although that's a very, very expensive thing, is get the second age-free landmark, the Imperial Palace, and advance to the Yuan Dynasty. First of all, the military units having a speed is a nice thing. Then granaries are also very helpful to boost your economy, but the big thing you would get is Fire Lancers. Fire Lancers do have impressive fire attack, as you might have guessed, and that is actually very good at sniping siege weapons. Meanwhile, Ribolda Queens coming out for the Viper here. I would love to see some hand cannons being mixed in, but it looks like it's gonna be Arbaletier for the Viper for now. If he just sets them up with their Pavise, that's enough to hold off the archers of Drongo, but Drongo's got a lot of siege here as well. 7 Springolds, couple of Clock Tower, Nest of Bees, and these guys have more HP, so 300 HP for Drongo's Clock Tower Springolds, and I feel like Viper Springolds have less HP than that. In fact, I know they have less, I just don't know how much of a difference there is. Still, Drongo has very, very limited map control right now, so... Ooh, he's moving out to the right side. I think he wants to maybe even drop a keep here. That would be a very, very nice spot to distract Viper. And it looks like Drongo is changing the pace of the game here. He's moving up with the crossbowman. He wants to hit Viper's eco here, and he might get a couple of villagers for the first time in the game. Drongo's at 110 with the villager count. It's 128 for Viper. Drongo's population count is actually better than Viper's one, by the way, who in exchange controls this central area with a keep, has one sacred site on the north. And look at this. One horseman over here guarding that relic. Viper is also grabbing this sacred site. Drongo will just try to control the last sacred site in the middle so that he prevents Viper from triggering the sacred site victory. Viper already setting up trade though, whereas that's not really possible on the other side because of this horseman being annoying. As Drongo got a castle up here on the left side, getting some gold. There is gonna be a keep coming up as well for Viper though on the other side. Looking at the upgrades, these are only standard crossbowmen, but the Zungenu are elite. Viper with a lot of elite archers, and I feel like those nest of bees and spring goats are just melting the buildings of Viper like butter. And Viper, this is the big goal that he wants to take here. He has lost this one, and there is not a lot of additional mineable gold on Viper's side, if I'm not mistaken. So if Viper gets forced off from this gold mine, that could be troublesome. There is apparently the Imperial Palace for Drongo. So here comes the Yuan Dynasty. And movement speed for all of your units is actually very, very handy. Helps microing your archers. And I think the big thing is Fire Lancers. I would love to see a couple of Fire Lancers here. They're pretty fragile, but relatively inexpensive. And they're very good at sniping siege weapons, which is exactly what you need when you have a big group of army composed of Zungenu and crossbows. Looks like Drongo is gonna spot the cavalry coming in towards his base. The problem is that his right side is just wide open, so once again he will be forced to just chase down units that are much faster than him. That's the whole story for Drongo. His army is much slower, and he's just constantly forced to chase, never really able to take a direct fight because Viper always just comes in and raids him. Looks like we'll have some Lancers being mixed in here by Drongo, so he just wants to start adding heavy cavalry himself. Now Viper's forces are trapped in here, so I'm not sure if Viper is gonna get anything out of that raid though, aside from the fact that it delays Drongo's push quite considerably. So the Springolds also set up. Most of these are Zungenu, but I mean, look at their firepower. These guys are actually very, very good at just delivering a huge amount of damage. I think Drongo is going to lose a village, but that's not really something that concerns him at this point. Both players at pop cap, but Viper's got way better map control. I think Viper also has multiple relics. Where's his monastery? Yep, he's got 3 relics, so that's 300 gold income for him. And I think he picked up some more relics, because there seemed to be one over here, I think. And there's one that he could pick up here in the middle. There is the Royal Culverin coming in for the Viper. That's a good unit. The Culverin is basically an anti-siege. It's an anti-siege weapon. It's better than the Springolds. So it's actually very, very good at sniping the siege of Drongo. That's exactly what Viper needs. And considering that Drongo is floating a lot of resources, it makes me wonder if he wants to advance all the way up to the Ming Dynasty, because it would give him access to, you know, the big thing would be the 10% extra health for his army. The Grenadiers aren't really good here because that's actually good against massed melee units. Archers would probably pick them off. As Drongo tries to sneak a keep up on the right side, but I think that's going to be a short-lived attempt here. Also has some wood control issues apparently as he's moving to the north. He didn't really start trading. Viper's got some trade cards working for him. And yeah, as I said, this is going to be a very, very short-lived keep here. Viper is going for full elite Royal Knights though, something that Drongo sees. And oh, the cannon could be sniped here. The Culverin is not paying attention, neither does Drongo. Oh, what a disaster from both sides, honestly. Because Drongo could have easily destroyed all the siege of his opponent here, but the same can pretty much be said of Viper. Here comes a monk. Here comes a monk for Drongo. He wants to trigger the conversion, but I don't think that he pressed the button. Here comes the conversion attempt. Viper is going to disengage, and there is a couple of archers and knights getting converted here. The nest of bees are also taking some very, very good shots on Viper's army. I feel like Drongo might be winning this fight over here. It's gonna be a pretty close fight, but the fact that Viper's Culverin here is not firing is actually a massive deal. Still, Viper is able to replenish his forces, whereas I don't see the reinforcements coming in from Drongo, as the final sacred site was also contested by Viper. The monk got sniped by Drongo. Not a lot of crossbowmen remaining here for Drongo, and that means that Viper's heavy cavalry will just shred the Zungenu. The remaining crossbows also do not have their Imperial Age upgrades, so they're not particularly effective. There is some Lancers coming out, but I mean, the French Knights one-on-one are way better than the Lancers. 364 HP with 32 damage, as opposed to 270 HP with 30 damage, so way better heavy cavalry for the French. This is not something that the Chinese can really fight against. And you see on the other side, we already have a Spring Ult coming out as well for Viper. Viper getting a keep up in the middle, and as I said, he already has 2 sacred sites. This one is very well protected. This one is sort of open, so Drongo could neutralize that. But if the final one in the middle also gets castled, Viper could just capture that and start the timer on Imperial Age. You see, or Imperial Age, what am I talking about? The victory itself. So you see, French aren't only powerful because of their Feudal Age composition, it's because their late game, the Imperial Age composition, is absolutely brutal. It is Elite Royal Knights with insane HP and damage, Arbaletier that can have Pavise, giving them a lot of extra pierce armor, very good artillery as well, so their late game composition might be one of the best, if not the best, in the entire game. What Drongo really needs, I feel like, is not Lancers here. What he could really use is hand cannon. Like, the Lancers would be fine, but I think Horseman hand cannon is the way to go for Drongo. Or maybe even Fire Lancer hand cannon. Fire Lancers have insane charge damage, so if they charge on the archers, they could do a lot of damage. And then, yeah, in fact, for Drongo, it's not a good idea to go for the Lancers. I just thought it over, and I see the crossbowmen for Viper. The crossbowmen are armor-piercing archers, so they will just melt the Lancers. That's not gonna work for Drongo. He needs Horsemen or Fire Lancers, some light cavalry, to be accompanied by probably hand cannons. Hand cannons would absolutely melt Viper's heavy cav, which, by the way, is about to swoop in from the north for another raid. This is once again a diversion by Viper, by the way. Something that he loves to do in his games. Move in with the cavalry on the right, which, by the way, hits a completely exposed part of Drongo's economy, forcing him to just mass migrate to the left. And while that's happening, he's gonna dive in the middle. He did snipe the bombard of Drongo here with the Culverines. Now he's gonna trap out as well. And I think we're just waiting for some extra siege from him to come in. It's difficult for Drongo right now. I feel like at this point the crossbows are a little obsolete, especially against the opponent that has Arbaletier. So I feel like hand cannons, especially for Chinese, who do get the technology in their university that makes their hand cannons much better, I think. For Chinese, hand cannon, Fire Lancer, or Horseman would be a reasonable idea. Drongo tries to wall off the north here for some extra trade, but the knight is going to pick off what's left of that villager, so this is going to remain open. I feel like one of the things that Drongo could maybe attempt to do is go for a counter raid, because at this point, he can't take a flat-out fight, but if he forces Viper back, as Viper is also going for stone walls on his own side, getting University in, the University already has finished with Biology, which is another important upgrade for Cavalry, gives them extra HP. So I feel like the only chance here for Drongo would be a counter raid, force Viper to chase, which would buy time for Drongo, because I think that's what Viper needs, or that's what Drongo needs, to buy himself some time. He also needs to neutralize one sacred site here, because Viper is capturing the third one in the middle. And for Drongo, he's stuck at 150 population. I feel like the fight that we have seen in the middle was just a little too much, and in general, the key thing was that Viper never really lost a villager in this entire game, I think. Yeah, if I think it over, Viper didn't lose a single villager in this entire game, whereas for Drongo, he got raided all day, all night, and that's the difference between the two players right now, as the crossbows also come in. This is not a fight that Drongo can take. The archers now have flaming arrows as well, so they can set buildings on fire. But as I said, and now Viper needs to deploy the Pavise, because if he does that, those crossbows virtually do no damage against him. And you see he's already picking off the trade of his opponent, and all three sacred sites are under Viper's control, so the sacred site victory condition is also triggered. I think Drongo has 10 minutes to get one of those sacred sites back, but that's not gonna happen. GG is called, and I think that considering that this is a recorded game, we won't be able to take a look at the stats. That's another deficiency of AoE4. But with this, Viper wins with French versus Chinese. This is why I think that French are more like an A-tier civilization, and I just feel like Chinese is more of a B-tier civilization right now. Chinese have their own powerful units, and they're, I think, a very, very flexible civilization, and I just feel like they probably have the most depth in the entire game. So once people figure out Chinese, we might see them emerge, but so far it's not figured out to level to be able to counter more simple but stronger civilization like the French.